Hello and welcome to the Chop Shop. My name is Dion Tucker. In this video, we're going to talk about different ways to practice and play the chromatic scale on the trombone. The chromatic scale can be one of the trickiest scales to master on the trombone. In this video, I'm going to share with you some practice tips and techniques that help me navigate my way through the chromatic scale. Now, before we get into that, as always, I want to thank everybody who subscribed to the channel so far. And if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you can get a heads up on whenever I put out a new video. So what is it that makes the chromatic scale challenging on the trombone? Well, in my opinion, it's the half-step movement. Unlike other instruments, we don't have keys or valves, so we have to be very accurate with our slide positions when we're going from note to note. A great way to practice your slide accuracy when playing the chromatic scale is pick any starting note that's comfortable for you and play the scale up and down at one octave, but don't use any articulation. We're going to take our focus of attention strictly to where our slide placement is for each note. So we're going to start on a concert B flat, and we're going to just go up the chromatic scale one octave, not using any articulation. We want to try to move the slide to the next note as quickly as possible, minimizing the glissando as much as we can. And when we add the articulation, we don't want to change that. Keep the slide speed the same. Don't use the articulation to hide bad slide technique. It's important to use all of our senses when we're playing the trombone. So let's look at how we can use visualization to help us play the chromatic scale. If you have a phrase that has chromatic movement in there and you know what the final note is, well, now you have your destination. So if you know your starting note and you know your destination, now it's time to figure out how to fill in the blanks. So this concert G flat is my target note. And visually, I'm going to stay dialed into fifth position because I know that's my destination. Sometimes we can overthink what we're playing and we forget where we're going. Now, one of the things that makes the chromatic scale tricky is our slide position choices. Depending on the octave that we're playing in, there usually is an alternate position that we can play certain notes in. Now, there are a few factors that can go into which position we decide to play the note in. Sometimes we'll pick an alternate position so that we can keep the slide moving in the same direction. There's other times where we might stay in the regular position so that we can use the natural break on the horn to create the sound of articulation. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm playing up the chromatic scale starting on concert D. This first pass through, I used all normal positions. Now I'm going to use some alternates. What you'll notice is that it keeps the slide moving in the same direction. Listen for the sounds of the natural breaks. Now there's more tongue involved with the alternate positions. If you have to play this line really fast, it's going to be a personal preference which positions you use. One of the more difficult aspects of playing the chromatic scale as a trombonist is when we have to incorporate multiple tonguing. It's tricky because lining up the tongue with the slide can be kind of challenging. I'm going to share a few tips with you that help me practice the chromatic scale when I'm using multiple tonguing. The first step is kind of counterintuitive, but you have to practice your multiple tonguing slow. Once you get comfortable with the syllables, Start to move the slide to match the different syllables. Timing is key here. Start working through the scale just a few notes at a time. Pick a small number of notes, practice the articulation, and then match it with the slide movement. Get used to stopping in odd places in the scale. Once you get comfortable, start practicing the scale all the way up and down. Now challenge yourself and speed it up. Use your alternate positions to your advantage and always practice the articulation first. Another exercise you can use to practice the chromatic scale is using approach notes. When I play the scale going up, I'm going to approach each note from a half step above. When I play the scale going down, I'm going to approach each note from a half step below. This exercise is great for practicing your slide accuracy. It's also good for helping you keep your airflow as consistent as possible. You also have the advantage of trying different alternate positions as you go through the scale. As you descend the scale, you want to approach each note from a half step below. All the same rules apply regarding slide technique and your airflow. You should practice this exercise at whatever tempo is comfortable for you. In my opinion, the chromatic scale is one of the toughest scales to play on the trombone. But if you can get down the slide movement in between half steps, it's going to make playing every other scale that much easier. Now, if you have any cool chromatic exercises that you practice, I'd love to check them out. Go ahead and drop them in the comments below. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out. Thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you next time at the Chop Shop.